Tensions between the Persian Gulf nations right now are getting concerning. The United States and Iran are at odds. We now have commercial airliners flying over the region on alert this morning. The Trump administration said that the escalating threats from Iran also forced evacuations this past week for all non-emergency staff at the Iraqi embassy in Baghdad. And in a recent trip to Iraq, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo stressed serious concerns about Iran.
What we've been trying to do is to get Iran to behave like a normal nation. We laid out 12 elements of that. Every single one of those elements is consistent with what we ask every other country in the world to do. So these are not Iran-specific, things like not conducting assassination campaigns around the world, not sponsoring terror organizations.
With us on the Hill this morning to discuss the latest in Iran and the region is Behnam. He is with the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. Behnam, thank you for joining us this morning. There is a lot we know and we don't know about what's going on in the Persian Gulf right now. The United States just doesn't send a carrier attack force for the heck of it for that part of the region. The administration has said they're concerned about some things that Iran is doing. What do we know about what Iran is doing?
Well, we know that Iran is acting like it's acted historically, meaning that it tends to support proxies, it tends to proliferate weapons all around the region. But the U.S. position here is actually quite interesting because as opposed to making it look like an escalation, in my view, the deployment of the carrier as well as the Patriot missile defense system to the region is a course correction. In 2018, there were 0 carriers in the Persian Gulf. That's actually an aberration if you look at the past decade or so of U.S. Security policy in the region. So this is designed to get Iran to back down without actually ever having to do anything.
The outline of this, we know, is concerns that Iran is meddling inside Iraq and possibly posing a threat to U.S. forces in Iraq. How involved in Iraq has the Iranian government been as far as meddling and trying to influence the government that is in place now in Iraq?
That's an excellent question because since the Iran-Iraq War ended in 1988, Iran has been slated to intervene in this country's politics, economy, society, culture, religion, in perpetuity. And when the U.S. removed Saddam in 2003, that was Iran's into Iraq. And you've seen Iran try to push around parliamentarians, buy off people, engage in assassination campaigns, and most recently stand up this cadre of Shiite militias that are beholden to Iran, not to Iraq, and deploy them across the region. And it's this group that Washington fears could be a Trojan horse of Iranian influence within Iraq and could be used to attack U.S. consulates, embassies, military facilities, and other type of buildings around the region.
So whenever we talk about things like this, I like to remember the 3 letters WIM, why it matters. This matters because if U.S. forces are attacked in Iraq, we could find ourselves in a much different situation than we are right now, possibly another military conflict in Iraq?
And the goal, of course, is to not have such a conflict ever occur. So if Iran does want to get feisty, does want to signal prospects for escalation under year 2 of the Trump administration's max pressure campaign, whereas as opposed to year 1, they were patient in kind of absorbing the cost of the sanctions, then, of course, the carrier is designed to get Iran to back down. It's designed to say, we know what forces, capabilities you have in the region. It's not in your interest because you can't win any escalation spiral.
What's clear is the United States has overwhelming military superiority in that region of the world right now. But it takes 2 sides to come to an agreement. Iran and the United States were involved in this Iran nuclear treaty. The United States decided it was going to pull out. Iran says it's going to stay in and abide by it, even though U.S. officials say that they have evidence to believe that is not the case. Is there a level of mistrust that exists between these 2 countries right now that endangers this escalating even further than it might on its own because the level of distrust is so high between both sides?
Well, that really is the operating word in the U.S.-Iran relationship since 1979, since an Islamic revolution took over that country. Iran fundamentally does not trust the United States. And if the Trump administration's goal, as it says it is to get a broader, better, genuinely comprehensive deal, not just limited to the nuclear issue, then it's going to have to increase this pressure because there's only a few times that Iran has done a 180 on key national security issues, and it's been in the face of escalating and massive pressure.
Anytime there's concerns in the Persian Gulf, people worry about gas prices. We saw 30 years ago the Iranian government back then mined the Persian Gulf at one point, sending gas prices skyrocketing. Is that a concern right now amongst the people who are watching that region of the world?
It's definitely a concern. And I think if you do believe that Iran was behind, or an Iran-backed force or an Iran-backed proxy group was behind the attacks on some of these vessels in the UAE in the port of Fujairah about a week or so ago, then, of course, Iran doesn't need to mine the Strait of Hormuz or block the Strait of Hormuz, where up to 20% to 30% of the world's international oil trade goes through. It simply needs to do these things to spike Brent prices, as well as say, look, America, I too have escalation options.
Behnam Ben Talbot from the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, talking about Iran and the tensions in the Persian Gulf this morning. We want you to come back because we expect that this is not going to end.
Unfortunately.
Anytime soon.